The Fall of the House of Usher is the newest and final miniseries from Mike Flanagan on Netflix. Mike Flanagan is my favorite horror director of all time. I've seen everything he's done, and today we are talking about the long-awaited and anticipated The Fall of the House of Usher, a title that basically explains the plot of this show. This is the richest family you can think of times 10, and the destruction and death and corruption in their family. It features a brilliant ensemble cast of so many familiar faces here, and this was my most anticipated project for the rest of the year. Mike Flanagan, as I said, is my favorite horror director of all time, one of my favorite directors of all time in general. Hill House is the greatest miniseries I've ever watched. It's my favorite thing of horror ever. I love Bly Manor. I love Midnight Mass. That's another one of my just absolute favorites of all time. Midnight Club was solid, although a step down. And then we have a bunch of movies like Doctor Sleep and Oculus and Ouija, Origin of Evil, and all this stuff that I will talk about eventually when I do a ranking in a few days. But today we are talking about this brand new show. There are 8 episodes. They're all out on Netflix now. They're about an hour long each. And I binged it all yesterday. That's typically what I do with Mike Flanagan, is I just sit down and watch it all and try to take it in. But this is going to be a spoiler-free review. I will have out probably by tomorrow a huge spoiler video. I went through all the episodes again just before filming this and skimmed through them all and wrote down all these notes, because when I watch it, I don't like taking notes. I like to just be focused on watching it. Maybe I'm eating something, but really I'm sitting down watching the TV for over 8 hours or whatever it is here, and The Fall of the House of Usher is another Flanagan masterpiece. Unfortunately, it is hard to expect nothing less of the man considering the body of work he's put out, and especially Hill House and Midnight Mass being 2 of my all-time favorite projects, I should say, shows, movie, anything, it would be included in those. I love them so much. So going into this show, I was very excited, although I avoided trailers constantly. I mean, I saw it originally when it came out. I probably watched it on Instagram or something, but after that I avoided any new release, any stills or anything like that. I kind of just looked at it once but didn't like analyze it or anything, because I realize that when I watch his shows I kind of psychoanalyze in a way, and there's just so much to take in that everything I got on this watch, I could watch the show again and be blown away by 50 other things per episode. Every episode here is so deep and dark and twisted, and it's all based on the works of Edgar Allan Poe, probably the most popular poet of all time, and focusing on stories like The Black Cat, The Raven, The Telltale Heart, all stuff like that, but also focusing on the Usher family, which is another thing that I'm not too familiar with. I know the basis of that story, but really I'm more familiar, especially with The Raven. That's the one I'm most familiar with. I know The Black Cat, I've heard that. I know a little bit about The Telltale Heart, but besides that, these are kind of stories that are not super familiar to me, although it's one of those things that, like, you hear the title, they go, oh yeah, I kind of know about that. And the way that Flanagan adapts that into all these character stories, because there are a lot of characters here, and the way he balances it is absolutely brilliant. I mean, you can really tell he is a master at work here. I firmly believe this is the most mature thing he's done, not only in some of the dialogue being extremely vulgar and hilarious and dark and twisted in a funny way. I mean, there are lots of scenes where you're like, oh, that's an unexpected joke, but it lands and it's not off-putting in a way. Yet the show still has a bunch of scares, although I would kind of hesitate to call this a horror show. It really is more of a crime thriller. It's very much centered around the family and how rich they are, and through all these episodes you see why they're so corrupt, and the way they talk to some people, the way that they talk to some doctors or just other people. Do you know who I am? The stuff I could do, all this stuff. And you see why, because of how their father was treated when he was younger. And in typical Mike Flanagan fashion, we see flashbacks and the way the stories are told. You see parts of them, and then later on it goes back and tells the rest of it, or implies this, did this happen? And that's what this show does so brilliantly, is kind of poses so many questions of how much of this did happen, how much of this is in the mind of a dying man, how much of this happened because of the money, is it all dark magic, is it making a deal with the devil, everything like that. It is so brilliant with that, but it really comes down to the writing, and the writing is just astonishing here. I think, as I said, this is the most kind of mature, and I don't want to say the deepest of all his stuff, because I'd probably still give that to Midnight Mass, and of course Hill House deals with trauma, and Blind Manor deals with love and everything, but it's just another brilliant piece of work from him that is so amazing. But I cannot discuss the show without talking about the performances, because the acting, oh my god. I mean, I've seen majority of these actors in his other work, but a lot of them, this is their best work without a doubt. The main one that everyone will be talking about, and they should, I'm sorry if I say it wrong, is Carla Gugino, or however you say her name. She is absolutely brilliant here. She was incredible in Gerald's Game. She was incredible in Hill House. She's incredible in everything she's in. But her in this show is just like, there are so many scenes where you're like, oh, you're really evil, or oh, you're doing this. You don't have to do this. Why are you doing this? Whatever. But it's the scenes where she sits down and talks to a bunch of these characters that is absolutely brilliant. And there's a moment in the final episode that I'm going to discuss in a different video, but it's a very sad moment, and the way that she portrays it is absolutely brilliant. But she plays so many different versions of this character. It is just mind-blowing of how good it is. Of course, Kate Siegel, Henry Thomas, Rao Coley, I think that's how you say his name. All these people, totally familiar faces. Samantha Sloan, all these incredible people are in it. And you know, when I've seen these people in Hill House and Blind Manor and Midnight Mass, it is funny to watch them again, but still, they're so good. Zach Gilford, you know, being the main star of Midnight Mass, then going on to the Midnight Club, now doing this, and playing all these different characters, but yet still being believable and being separate from that. I mean, it's one of those things that it's just so impressive. It's like when you take Samuel L. Jackson in a Tarantino movie, or Robert De Niro in a Scorsese movie. It's just one of those where it's like, yeah, you expect these actors, but the real test is, can they differentiate these characters from the past ones they've played that have already been so well written, performance of the lifetime in some of these, and they do it once again. I could go down the list and throw on every single name in the show, but really that's what the entire video will be in, and I will talk about that in the other ones. But every single performance here is nuanced and contained. Their realizations or scenes of like sorrow and regret and all this very deep stuff, and the way that every single actor portrays it is so good, and the way they deal with drugs and sex, and I've said corruption a bunch of times, but just this riches that this family is dealing with, and the way it's explored, again, through the episodes. Every episode kind of builds on the last one and becomes more deep, and you find out stuff about characters who may not be the focus of the episode, but it's not so much like the one of Hill House, where every character kind of has their own episode and it's focused around them. It'll be like, yeah, this character has this happen in this episode, but you still are finding little bits and pieces out about other ones, which I absolutely love. It's very hard to talk about the show without going into spoilers, but the way that Mike Flanagan was able to adapt all these stories into this beautiful, sad, but just so goddamn entertaining story is gorgeous. I mean, the show looks gorgeous. It sounds great. The way that he implements scares way less than you expect, and you're more freaked out by what they're actually saying because you realize how evil these people are, and yet you feel bad for them at times. And I love how he plays with our emotions here. I could talk about this show for hours, and I already know I'm going to be annoying about this to everybody over the next month. The Fall of the House of Usher is Mike Flanagan's most mature work yet. Above all else, this crime thriller is a story about regret, riches, and revenge, with hints of horror sparsely placed throughout. The ensemble cast is beyond brilliant in every sense of the word. The character dynamics are riveting, and the adaptation of Edgar Allan Poe's many stories is nothing short of genius. This is another Flanagan masterpiece. I'm going to give The Fall of the House of Usher a 5 out of 5. Try to say that title 5 times fast, but it's fun, and it makes so much sense why that is the title. And again, being familiar with some of these stories was really good, but it's not everything that you expect, and in typical Flanagan fashion, it goes in different ways. And when you think, oh, this thing won't be tied up, or oh, there's this loose end or something. Somehow he manages to do it with all these incredible actors. Mark Hamill is in this, and he is so brilliant. Again, I could go along the list of everybody, and I will do that in a future video. So if you have seen it, let me know what you think of it down below. Where does it rank amongst the other Flanagan projects? I'll be ranking all of them, which means shows, movies, all the fun stuff like that in a few days. And thank you all for watching. I will see you guys next time. Over and out.